Hey guys, and welcome to AFC Curtis. I'm your host Curtis, and on today's episode, a very special episode. Not only is it right here on Christmas Day, but it's my year in review episode. And not only that it's my year in review episode, but I even have a special guest for this year in review, and that is my good friend and buddy of the channel here is Jonathan Hammond. Got to bring him back on. But if that's not enough, I have some bigger news other than just that to add on to that, and that is that my channel, AFC Curtis, is now partnered up and joining forces with the northernstarting11.com. I'll have the link for that website in the description below. You can go there for all your Canadian soccer news, your CPL news, everything. There's also great podcasts there like C2C and From the River. So if you're a fan of podcasts, check those ones out as well. And now AFC Curtis is going to be up there each and every Tuesday. Not only am I going to be here on YouTube, but also on northernstarting11.com. So without further ado, sit back, relax, grab your bespoke Christmas sweater, and join myself and Jonathan and our year in review. Hey guys, and welcome to AFC Curtis. I'm your host Curtis, and I'm super psyched to open up a new era for AFC Curtis, as this will be the first new episode on Northern Starting 11. And my first episode is actually the last episode of 2018, which is kind of funny, and I'm super excited because it's my year in review episode, and I'm pleased to be joined back with Mr. Jonathan Hammond. How's it going, Jonathan?
I'm doing well. Congratulations on moving on up. The subscriber base is going to grow now, and hopefully you and the Northern Starting 11 got a good thing going in 2019.
Hopefully, yeah. They got a lot of good podcasts and stuff on the website, too. So we're all super excited to kind of bring up that platform there. Just have another place for people to go for the Canadian Premier League-like news, so
that's what it's all about, man. Working together to grow the game.
Of course, and then of course we got a huge, big year 2018. Like this is probably.
Oh, yeah. I
know it's like one of those land kind of big move years for Canadian soccer, if that makes sense. Just because a lot of big things happen that's historical, and that's why I think we need an episode kind of like this on YouTube where we kind of document all these big things that just happened in this year.
Yeah, it's been a crazy year. You know, we've got things happening with the professional side of the game and with the international side of the game. We've got young players going to Bayern Munich for millions of dollars, and we've got, you know, some new prospects coming into the very first Canadian professional league. So it's certainly a big time to celebrate and kind of sit back and then take a look at what everyone's accomplished in the game this year. It's really been incredible.
Yeah, no, this year has been just probably that I can think off the top of my head, probably the best year for Canadian soccer in a long time.
Certainly, yeah. No, I since they've been since they qualified for the World Cup, I can't remember a time that we've been so positive in Canada with respect to where our game's at and where it's going. There's a lot of momentum, and I think carrying that into 2019 is the goal, and I think it'll certainly continue to be so.
Right, and another thing I want to touch too before people ask, because they might not watch this on Christmas Day, but this episode does come out on Christmas Day, and that is why we're wearing our Christmas sweaters.
Yes, yeah. No, I've got the Christmas tree in the background, and my dog's sitting here too. So if you hear any loud barking, it's just because he's super excited for Santa or something like that.
Oh God, that's really cute. That's cute.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So to start now with the Canadian Premier League review. So it was a big year. We kind of knew about the league coming in. We got all the announcement of the commissioner. We waited a long time to hear any news about clubs. But then we eventually, throughout the summer, we did start to build that club base. We ended up getting 7 clubs announced. Yep. Then being York 9 FC was announced first. We got Calgary FC in Calgary. And then next we got Halifax and Halifax Wanderers in the city of Halifax. And then I believe after that we had Valor FC in the city of Winnipeg.
Yep.
We got FC Edmonton that came up next. And then after that we waited a bit longer because it was the World Cup. Yep. But then we did find out the last 2 clubs to join, of course, was Forge FC in Hamilton.
Yep.
And then finally Pacific FC in Vancouver Island there.
Sorry, go ahead.
Are you like excited to see these, or are you kind of maybe feel a little sad that there's only 7 clubs instead of maybe 8 or 10 or?
Well, listen, I think one club is a start, just to have a bit more control over the growth of the Canadian game, and instead of being at the kind of behest of the MLS is a good start. So having our league is a big positive. So having one or more teams with our own league is obviously is a good start. But the more teams, the more opportunities for players. Seven is a bit of an odd number, but there are limited resources and owners willing to take risks at this point in time. It's a new league, so I treat it as a startup, and so there's got to be a little bit of proof in the pudding. So I think this first year is a really good test, and hopefully we'll have 3 or 4 more clubs join in the new year. But no, listen, I don't think anyone can complain. 7 or 8, 9 or 10. We have a professional league, and the clubs that are in it now are super excited, and I think everyone else is super excited. So I think we have 7. Let's be happy with it, and make sure all the fans are getting out to all the games and supporting where they can.
Which city are you excited to see the most in professional soccer?
Oh, come on, Curtis. You know who I'm supporting. So I'm a Halifax boy, born and raised, and that's who I'll be wearing. That's the jersey I'll be wearing come April. So I don't think you have to go too far wondering who I'll be supporting, and I know he'll be supporting the Valor FC team. So. But listen, I hope all of them are a success off the pitch, commercially and financially. And if I ever, get to play in the league, I'll be giving my best for whoever it is. So listen, it's Halifax for me. So let's be honest.
You're giving your best for Halifax until, of course, we got that club in Yellowknife, right?
Oh yeah, I think I talked about that in the first episode. Listen, Yellowknife, I heard it's wonderful in the summer, a little bit buggy, but whoever's decides to pay the bills is who you play for, right?
Well, that's my next accomplishment. So if you're watching this, please subscribe, because once I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'll bring a club to Yellowknife. How about that?
There you go. I'll be your first investor too, as well.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're all super excited. There's 7 clubs. 7 different cities in 2019. There's obviously going to be more in the future. Which city or which cities do you think will join probably in 2020, 2021?
That's a good question. I think earlier on in one of the commissioner's statements or some interview I was listening to, I think they said that prior to the start of the season, there's going to be at least 3 or 4 clubs announced for the start of the next season. So I'd imagine, given your experience talking to Alex Bunbury, that Laval, there'll be a team in Quebec. That seems logical. Laval or Quebec City, maybe even 2. I'd like to see one in Saskatoon or Regina to start rounding out, having it across province. A team in every province would probably be ideal. And, I certainly think there's room for some of the smaller population-wise and maybe financially-wise markets to put a team together, and that'll be largely funded by the community. Places like St. John, Moncton, St. John's, Newfoundland, I know would be an awesome place to visit. But I'd say they'll probably go population-wise outwards. So Laval, Quebec City, Saskatoon. I know there's a couple cities in Ontario that are looking to get their hands on a team. Mississauga. Kitchener-Waterloo, everyone I would say that can put together a team that fits within the cap and the budget, I think will be looking to get in there as quickly as possible if the first year's a success.
Right. How many teams do you feel will probably join? Because I'm thinking it's probably going to be 10 in 2020.
Yeah.
Go from there.
No, I think that seems likely. You never know what's happening with the Ottawa Fury, and they might join the league too. So, let's go. I'll say 12 by 2021.
That's a nice number.
That is a nice number. I think so.
What's your take on the whole Ottawa Fury situation? Obviously, for those who don't know, in September, it was long rumored that they were going to join the Canadian Premier League next year, and in September they came out and said, "Listen, we respect the league, but we're not joining the league at this time." And then I think it was just like a week or 2 ago that the CONCACAF, a governing body for North American clubs, they came out and stated, listen, unfortunately, Ottawa Fury does not have sanctioning to play in the USL, which is the second division of U.S. soccer.
Yeah.
There's a lot of point of views on it. I have my video from last week where I kind of gave my point of view on it. What's your point of, or what do you feel with the situation?
It's a tough situation for a lot of different reasons. One, for CONCACAF to kind of have that end all be all power to be able to sanction a professional club as to which division they're going to be playing in. I mean, they're putting forth a big financial outlay to be part of the USL, and that's there's that side. But then on the other side, it seems to me that there was probably a bit of miscommunication on many people's plates. From Ottawa's perspective, it seems like they were under the understanding of one position, while CONCACAF and Canada Soccer had a different position altogether. So I think the truth probably lies somewhere in between everyone's story, and we'll probably never get the real answer. But long term, I'd like to see Ottawa in the Canadian Premier League. It only makes sense. So
right.
If this expedites that, then so be it. Again, it's a tough situation to be in for the players. I feel for them. Players have signed contracts and they don't know where they're going to be next year now. And so really the players and the fans and the coaches are the ones that are really losing out. And, I feel for them. It's a tough place to be in. So hopefully they get it figured out soon. I saw they're going to court in arbitration. So we'll see how that turns out. But hopefully sooner better for the players so they can get their lives in check. And, if they end up in the CPL, I don't think anyone will complain.
Yeah, that's true. But I think, I feel the way it's going to go, obviously mentioned the court, it's going to go to arbitration there. I feel the way it's probably going to end up is that they get to play in the USL in 2019, but they have to be in the CPL for 2020. I think that's probably what's going to end up happening. I think
that seems the most logical.
I think Ottawa even came out and said in September that, we're not joining in 2019, but I think their target date was something like 2021.
Yeah.
In that statement in September. So, I mean, a year earlier is a year earlier. They'll probably have to make some moves from what I hear the cap might be compared to what they're spending for the USL club. Obviously, to be different. So, Who knows?
Yeah, no, again, it's a tricky situation. And with the league, both leagues starting up very soon in the new year, you got to figure it out soon. So, I tend to agree with you. They'll probably end up playing in the USL and then work to transition in 2020. But from a outsider's perspective, the whole situation doesn't look good. Doesn't reflect well on any of the three parties that are involved in it. So it's a critical point. You can point to all three and play the blame game, or you can just move on with it, and away we go. Luckily, as CPL fans, we don't have to worry about it this year if they're not in it. So that is the way it is, and we move on.
Yeah, as CPL fans, we can really only gain a positive out of it. Either way, we're gonna have 7 teams at least. So. And the season's like what, 4 months away? So hey, playing anymore.
Exactly, coming close.
Yeah, and so after the team announcements throughout the summer and even early fall, we had the next step of building a league. We have the clubs, now we gained the coaches and the general manager. So a bunch of them. Obviously, we had Tommy Weldon Jr. with Calvary FC. He was announced when the club was announced in May. He was the first one, and then. Throughout the summer, we got more. We got Jeff Pullis with FC Edmonton, Michael Silver-Bauer with Pacific FC, Rob Gale for Valor FC, Bobby Smiritis for Forge FC, Jim Brennan there for York 9, and of course the legend Stephen Hart there for Halifax Wanderers. What are your expectations as a player standpoint of these coaches? Who do you think maybe will blow expectations out of the water in 2019, and which ones do you think have a lot to prove in 2019?
So I think you probably have the odd man out in Michael Silverbauer from Pacific FC in terms of he's coming in from Europe. He's probably the only one. He's a bit of an unknown, so I think he probably has an advantage from that standpoint, but also he probably has a lot to prove, both for himself and for the club. You know, it's a big challenge from him coming from Europe and coming to Canada. It's a big change for his life, and getting used to the Canadian players, the Canadian market, and a new Canadian league will probably be something that's a bit of a challenge. And, you know, adjusting to the lifestyle is a challenge too as well. So I think for him, he'll need to hit the ground running. And I have no doubts that any of these coaches will not hit the ground running. They've all been highly experienced in the game. I think primarily it'll come down to who recruits the best, and, you know, who has the best fan base. And having a good fan base, a nice supportive fan base, is like playing with an extra man on the team. So I think having good support from the crowd and recruiting well will probably be kind of the primary aspects. You know, all of these teams are going to be operating within a salary cap, so you can only pay so much for so many players. So I think from a coaching standpoint, they all have their unique coaching styles, if you will, and, you know, we'll see that play out on the pitch, provided they get the right players in. So it's a big one for them.
All right. Who do you think has an upper hand in recruiting?
That's tough to say. I mean, you know, you've got the Hamilton Forge coach who's close with Sigma FC. So I see, you know, his first two signings were players that he had close-knit ties with. And from Ontario, they generally have a larger player base. And you can see the players that are playing professionally largely in the USL, MLS type leagues have come from those League One type clubs. So they've got a closer hand to the type of age group and age range and the type of player that the Canadian Premier League is trying to attract, I would say. But then you have Stephen Hart, who's got, you know, so much international experience that it would be hard to say that he won't be, you know, drawing from those different experiences and, you know, and recruiting quality international players to supplement the players he's going to sign that are Canadian. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I wouldn't say anyone has an upper hand, and you can look at their recruiting strategies. They've all, you know, stayed relatively close to home for the most part. So we'll see how that plays out. I guess it'll be interesting. What about you? What do you think? Who's your team? I know you've got Rob Gale as your good friend now. So what's going on there?
I think in terms of coaching, I think I don't want to make a funny answer there and get stuck in the future. Yeah. But I think I'm just basing this opinion off of like what has happened in the past and like past resumes and stuff.
That's all you can do.
And I believe that it's gonna probably be, I think Stephen Hart maybe has a bit of an upper hand in terms of coaching tactics, just because he's coached at multiple levels, international stuff. So I think right now, resume wise, either him or maybe even Tommy Weldon Jr. might be the best coaches on paper, at least, because of experience. But I think in terms of development, I think Rob Gale definitely has a big hand in it. I think Bobby Smirnotis. I think the two guys, you mentioned one of them, the two coaches I feel have to improve, or not improve, but show that they're good right off the bat. I think it's Jim Brennan, and I think is Michael Silberbauer. I think those two guys for sure have a lot to prove, I feel.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I think Jim Brennan's probably a bit of an unknown. You know, I know he's coached. Sorry, my dog's barking, but I know Jim Brennan has coached a little bit in League One Ontario, and you know, we'll see where that comes from. But you know, and I think he's recruited close to home too, so players he knows that I've seen around the league, and he's a bit of an unknown, so maybe that's an upper hand.
Right, and so we move on now from the coaches. We have the coaches announcements. The next big thing after that was announced in late August, ended up happening through the fall in Canada. Now is the open trials. That's something you were a part of too. You're part of the first ever open trials. And of course, we talked about that the first time we met when we had that interview back in October. So I'll link the video for that as well in the description below for people who maybe haven't seen that. You kind of give a really good in-depth look of the open trials in that episode. But as a whole, because you're an open trialist, you maybe had the, some might say, disadvantage of being the first open trial. But overall, the trials, I think, were good. Do you feel that I mean, again, you only have it from the Halifax perspective, but do you feel like the open trials really was a good fit, was a good hit right off the bat for the Canadian Premier League, and that it finally caught everybody up in terms of finding those players that should be playing right now professionally?
Well, I guess twofolds. One is from a marketing perspective, the open trials were a massive hit. I think the buzz generated amongst players, amongst parents who are looking to get, who there's kids are looking to play in a professional environment or looking for that next opportunity. I think generated a ton of buzz, and you can see just when it went from Halifax, there was 115 players, but all the way to Vancouver, the buzz just caught like wildfire, and it was just it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think I'd imagine if you went and looked at Twitter analytics, the amount of mentions the Canadian Premier League would get every week is just has been increasing ever since then. So from a marketing standpoint, I think it was a massive success. From a player's point of view, I think in Halifax would be. Again, it was a way to kind of put yourself out there and see how you did against some other players that are trying to catch the eye of a coach, whether young or old, or people who have played in situations like that before, and compare yourself athletically, at least, to players across the country. So, you know where you stand. I think from the marketing perspective, it was probably a bigger hit than it would be for the players. I think you will see players get invited into training camp, whether that is directly through the open trials or just through their past play. They might have happened to be at the open trials, but they may know the coach. The coach may have seen something in them, or I think you'll see some players at training camps.
How many players overall, not in training camp, but in the league, do you see playing? I mean, they were saying, I think the commissioner was saying something about like 15 to 20 playing in the Canadian Premier League. I just feel like that's kind of a low number. I don't know if that's just me, but coming from a player standpoint, how many do you predict could be playing in 2019 in the CPL?
I think it really comes down to a lot of logistical things that the league that we don't know about the league yet. So what is the salary cap? How many players are going to be on a team? How are these players getting allocated? That type of thing. From my perspective, I think the coaches probably are having a bit tougher of a time recruiting international players or players that are with a ton of professional experience, just given salary cap, and it's a new league. It's a tough thing to get people engaged in. From a professional player standpoint, there's a lot of risk involved. So I think from that standpoint, you'll probably see a lot of newer faced players, young or old, come into the league and prove themselves. Just because they haven't been given an opportunity before doesn't necessarily mean they don't fit the grade. There's a lot of players in this country that can play, and I think you've heard that from every single one of the coaches that have been to the trials. Coaches generally pick players they're comfortable with and are familiar with, but sometimes you'll see the kid that catches the eye, and we've seen that in Edmonton. They signed a player right out of the open trials. So I mean, you never know, but I think 20 to 25 players from open trials is probably right on the head. Maybe. I mean, you never know. It depends how well the recruiting is, and I guess we'll find out early January when the transfer window opens up, just what exactly the league's going to look like. But come February, you'll know probably how many people are going to be in preseason camp from the open trials, and then you can work backwards from there.
Right. So do you see the open trials coming back in the future? Obviously, there's going to be expansion in the next couple of years. Do you see there being maybe an open trials for those expansion clubs open up, or do you think this is a one-time deal?
I think from a league-wide perspective, it's probably the first and only time they'll do it. I think every club after this first year will have their own individual open trials, and I think that's pretty typical of the way clubs operate. They probably want a bit more control over what they're looking for, and they're going to have an established identity. Perhaps, again, as you noted, if there are expansion clubs, maybe the league does, a Got Game Trials version 2, where, the new expansion clubs have the open trials. But from my understanding, most of the players that attended the open trials will be put in a database, and the ones that were kind of identified as a watch list will certainly be on the radar for any expansion clubs or clubs in the future that wish to kind of bring in a fresh face.
So then the next step after the open trials, of course, was the in November, mid-November, they had the Cpl Draft, the first ever Cpl Draft, and I'm sure we'll see that probably every year from this point onwards. But how do you feel about how the draft ended up working out? Obviously, it was a closed door draft. It was on the Monday, and they released, I think, on the Tuesday. But obviously, Gabriel Batar there was the first overall pick and the first overall pick in CPL history to Tommy Weldon Jr.'s Calvary FC. Is there any players out of the draft that you think stand out to you?
Yeah, no, I think everyone who kind of went in that first round are players that I see playing in the league almost immediately. I think given the fact that it was a 3-round draft, there wasn't a lot of room for players that might have been off the board, that might have came in and snuck in at the year end. I think the scouting was done a lot prior to the weekend and the national weekend, and the players who performed on the weekend likely just cemented the coaches' opinions. I think it was odd that so many fifth-year players got picked, given the fact that they could just sign for the club or attend a trial without the club having to waste a pick on that player. They could have drafted a first or a second-year player, bring them into the environment and see how they operate. And so I'm not entirely sure how the effectiveness of all the clubs performed at the draft, but I know there's some good players in there, and you'll certainly see some make an impact in the future.
I did a draft recap episode a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you've seen it, but at the end of the episode, I did like my team that I felt kind of won the draft in terms of overall talent that they drafted. Is there a team that you would say won the draft? My pick, of course, was FC Edmonton. I thought overall, 2 of their 3 picks, that they had a really good haul in terms of overall talent and I think starters. Who is your pick as a team that won the draft?
From my perspective, I would say that Pacific FC won the draft. Given the fact that they've drafted some players that aren't necessarily fifth years, Thomas Gardner and the other 2 guys, are quality players, and they have got a bit of longevity in them. I think I wouldn't say FC Edmonton won it because they could have just picked those players up without having to waste a draft pick on them. So, right. And you saw that too with one of their players signing directly from the draft. So, from my perspective, if that player was on the radar, unless any other club was going to pick him up, they could have just signed him outright if they were going to do that anyway. So, I don't know again how the inner workings of the management structure will work in the CPL. So I'm not going to pass judgment on that. But from a quality perspective, Halifax got an excellent center back in Peter Shaw, and rumors are that he was one of the top performing, if not the top performing center back at the national championship. So if you're looking for an immediate impact player, I think there's 2 or 3 clubs that got that. Halifax certainly being one, and Pacific FC getting one. And from what I hear, York, their center back that they've drafted is an excellent player, and the club's looking for him to step right in. So I guess it's a matter of opinion on what you define as successful or who won the draft, but I would say the winner will be decided in 2019 when we see how many of these players are making an impact on the pitch. So, short side, I would say Pacific FC got the best overall haul, and then moving forward, I guess we'll see.
And then finally, or maybe not finally, but I guess it happened kind of in the middle of the open trials. There was the Macron announcement there as the official kit provider for the Canadian Premier League. Is that a company you think will provide pretty good kits? I think that they're kind of not really well known, but I think they're good enough that I've seen some of their stuff. Obviously, they're out there. They've made clubs and national team kits. I feel like they'll be unique. Do you feel that was a good move for the Canadian Premier League? over maybe going over a Nike or Adidas, where you kind of know what you get because it's a bigger name brand, at least in Canada?
Yeah, certainly. I think from my perspective, securing those commercial deals are essential for the long-term success of a league. It really depends what the manufacturer holds over you. So signing with a Nike or Adidas may require certain league-wide commitments that they were not ready to make, and the best deal on the table, if you trust the people at the center of the league, was the Macron deal. So I think they've made some cool Lazio kits in the past. The word going around is bespoke. I hear that every day on Twitter. If you feel free to look at the Canadian Premier League Twitter feeds, you'll see bespoke all over there. But I guess we'll see early 2019 how the kits look. But I think there's quite a few clubs in the Ontario League One that are Macron supplied, and their kits don't look too bad. It's at the end of the day, it is just a kit, but you want your fans to kind of feel something when they put it on, and the players especially. So let's hope they do a good job. But I think for the long-term success of the league, it's an essential piece.
I think we should also point out that our sweaters today are bespoke as well. So
this is a very bespoke sweater. I sourced it from Value Village, I think. So very bespoke. I think it's one of a kind.
Yeah, no, I'm bespoke, and then I
like yours. I like yours. Yeah.
But the elf is also wearing a bespoke sweater.
Oh, nice. Bespoke on bespoke. I like it.
Yeah, I got it from the bespoke section.
Yes. Yes. The bespoke section. I like it.
And so, with a Macron announcement, the next and probably the latest news and over the last couple of weeks really have been the first ever signings. We finally have some players that put and are officially Canadian Premier League players. Now there's some names in here. I got a list here with the names here. Some of them are, I think the most popular names that I know of seeing are, of course, we got like Kyle Becker. He's played with Toronto FC in the past and a couple other MLS clubs. Kyle Porter as well as another name. I think there's, and of course Nick Ledgerwood too, as well as another kind of big name that we've kind of known for a while.
Yep.
And that was just from Wave 1. We got some good names as well that in the last 2 weeks have come out for Wave 2, I guess you can call them. Overall, the signings, which signings are your favorite?
I think it's very, very interesting, the strategy that the clubs have taken. I think what you're seeing is a lot of the clubs are playing out the strategy that they talked about in the beginning, staying local first, what they know, then they'll look national, and then they'll look international. I think some of the clubs have more advantages over the others. Halifax, for example, is limited in its number of players who have played in professional environments before. It's the nature of it. So, Halifax is our first professional soccer club. Oftentimes players have had to go away to get opportunities. So Halifax will be an interesting one. I think their first signing is a good one. A young player up and coming, lots to prove. So I'm happy with that. I think the winner, if you will, is probably Hamilton. They've got 2 kind of players with some good experience in the professional game, and they are still young enough where they've got a lot to prove. But again, Edmonton FC, they've put together a good young local squad of players that we probably could have expected to sign deals, and same with Calgary. Pacific FC, again, they're doing well as well. They've signed a good young fullback in Caden Chung. So I think, listen, it's exciting for everyone involved in the league, players, coaches, fans. It's happening. So that's probably the biggest thing that you get. I think as soon as the first player puts pen to paper, the songs start to get made, the supporters start to get names on the back of the jerseys, everything starts to kick off. So the biggest takeaway from this is that it's real, it's happening, and more yet to come. So hopefully there's a good Christmas present along with this podcast, obviously, and YouTube video that maybe there'll be some more signings announced.
Oh yeah, hopefully. I can tell you this: every day for the last month has probably been like Christmas. I think for most CPL supporters, like there's oh, when was it, last week or 2 weeks ago now, when they announced the second wave, like it was like one day it was like Calvary FC, the next day it was FC Edmonton, next day
Yeah,
it was Valor FC. I just
Valor.
didn't sleep. I didn't sleep. I was just the
Yeah.
whole way through. It's
Just
unbelievable.
looking at them.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's huge. I mean, it's an exciting time, as we talked about at the top of the video. It's a crazy 2018, and I think 2019 and beyond will be even crazier. You know, as the league grows, the players that come in are going to have, you know, bigger professional resumes, you know, better CVs. It's just the way it's going to go. So I think on the field, we'll probably need to be a bit patient if you're a fan. Let the players, you know, sink in, but it'll certainly be an exciting year. And the signings to date certainly prove that. So if you're a fan, you know, buckle in. It's gonna be a fun ride.
Oh, for sure, for sure. One thing though, I will mention is I'm a little bit disappointed about for the CPL. No, this is so it's kind of a big thing, I guess, but it's the one thing I'm disappointed about is that there's no TV deal yet. That's the one thing that I wish we got before. Maybe it's on Christmas Day. Maybe that's an announcement. I highly doubt.
Who
But
knows? A little present.
yeah, that would be nice. But who do you Who do you see them signing with? Or maybe they're not even on TV. Maybe they're on, obviously, the EPL. They're just jumped on with Daz in there.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the CPL will do the same? Do you feel like maybe they'll do their own? I hope to God that they get on the CBC or TSN along the lines. What's your feeling on that?
That's the one big mystery, I think, to all of the fans. They want to know where they're going to be able to watch the games when they can't get to them. And given the size, the vast nature of our country, there's going to be a lot of times where you want to watch, a team from, say if you wanted to watch Pacific FC versus Halifax in Halifax for you. That's probably not the easiest time. And some people just want to be fans of the league, so they want to know where they're going to watch their football. That being said, the Canadian Premier League made an acquisition earlier this year for a digital media company, and I think, or digital streaming company, and I think, part of it's going to be them, streaming a lot of their own stuff, and maybe that's just a way of building their brand. And then second of all, I think Sportsnet's done a lot of good coverage on the league lately. So, maybe they're picking up a few games here and there. I think that's going to be an interesting one, similar to the kit deal where, where they sign will really kind of dictate the success of the league over the next couple of years. But you're right. I hope it's on cable somewhere, because every day I look to my cable and we're just losing more and more. Soccer, Champions League, English Premier League, everything. It's going. So, either I join the subscription service or, I get it on the CBC or Sportsnet.
Yeah, no, I'm sad that come September or August, I guess now, I won't be able to watch Saturday morning soccer anymore. So.
Yeah, although DAZN is only $20 a month, so it's if you have internet, it's probably a bit cheaper if all you watch is soccer. So there's hope for us yet.
Yeah, that's true too. Now to wrap it up, I want to say we got to do prediction time here for the 2019 season. I know we've got like a whole year still ahead of us, and we only have a few player signings and stuff. But who do you feel, with what we know now, and this is recorded December 20th, 2018, comes out in 5 days, this episode. Who do you feel will win the first ever CPL season?
Well, without doubt, it'll be the Halifax Wanderers. So I don't think there's any question about it. Yeah, no, I have to go with the hometown. But listen, I think it'll be competitive. We'll see how the league format is rolled out. But yeah, Halifax Wanderers all the way.
Are you a single table, or do you feel with no playoffs, or do you feel there should be playoffs?
I'm indifferent. I really don't know how they're going to format the league. There's an odd number of teams. Again, as we talked about, the distance between teams is quite vast. So it's pricey. It's expensive. So I don't know how they're going to do it. We'll see. Maybe it's round robin, multiple round robins. Who knows? I think single table is the ultimate goal. It looks a bit prettier, and in the end, it makes playing for the league really mean everything versus, you know, getting into a position to play in some sort of playoff. And I don't think the number right now is, you know, suffices to have, you know, some 7-team or 4-team bracket at the end of it, you know, with 3 teams missing out. I think it'll be a lot more competitive than that. So I think top of the table wins it all and move on. Who's your team?
Who do I pick winning?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, I don't know. It's either Yellowknife FC or Valor FC, I guess. I don't know. It's tough to say. But
I don't know. But from your journalist perspective, from an unbiased, not hometown perspective, who's your team to win based on this current signings, the coaches, the fan base, everything?
Right. I don't know. I really think the 2 Alberta teams, honestly, are like they're pretty good. They're making Valor FC fans a little warm over here, but I think Valor FC so far with their signings they're all Winnipeg boys, have been fantastic. I think it's tough to say, but the big mystery is what Pacific FC does.
Yeah.
I love the signing of Caden Chung. I think it'll be a tight league if it's like single table. Most points wins the league. I think there won't be that big of a difference between 7th and 1st. I really don't.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be for sure, definitely within 10 points difference. But I think ultimately, man, if I had to pick one, that's a tough one. That's really that's a really tough one.
There's only 7. It's tough.
I know, and I think.
Oh man.
Yeah, I think your dog has it right. It's Valor FC. It's either Valor FC or I'm gonna say it's gonna be one of the 3 prairies. I really feel that, or I think if anything Forge FC, or it could be York 9 or Pacific FC or Halifax. I don't know, or you could be right too.
Yeah, I think it's one of the 7 they have to win. So I mean, hopefully, if no one wins, then we're all out of luck. That means there wasn't a league. So. Yeah, so I'm rooting for Halifax, but we'll see.
Okay, I'll give you my final. I think ultimately, I don't know why I have a strange feeling, but mark the calendar. It's going to be Forge FC. I think Forge FC will just edge it out, and I think it'll be by 3 points or less.
Okay, I'll write it down. Actually, sorry, I don't have to write it down. It's on YouTube, so I don't have to write it down.
There you go.
There you go.
Anytime.
Yeah, and at Northern 11.
And at Northern 11, yes. And I think second place will be a Prairie team. I think it's going to be either FC Edmonton, Calgary FC, or Valor FC.
Well, geez, there's not too many more to pick from, so you're probably going to pick one. You're probably going to be pretty close.
Yeah, no, I hope to God I'm pretty close, and we gotta do this in a year from now. Then and see if I was right, and see if maybe you're right. Who knows?
Listen, if I'm right, that means I'm doing something right. So, yeah, let's hope.
Yeah, and if you're right, you can pick my lottery numbers next time. How about that?
I wouldn't go that far. I never win the lottery, so.
Jeez. Well, Jonathan, I want to thank you for joining me on this recap episode. We recapped a lot this year. There's a lot that happened in 2018, and I think we touched on all of it in a pretty good time here for this episode. I'm super excited for this episode to drop. Obviously, Northern starting 11 will be on their website there, as well as it's Christmas Day if you're watching this live. So a big Merry Christmas from AFC Curtis, and super excited for the new year.
Me too, my man. Hopefully I'll have some good news for you in the New Year's. I know I will. So I'll talk to you soon, man.
Have a good one.
See you, buddy.
Hey guys, congratulations! You made it to the end of that long episode. It was a bit about 40 minutes or so, I know, but we did cover the whole year of 2018. I did say it was a year in review. So I hope you like this video. Make sure you hit that like button, and if you want to see more content just like this about the Canadian Premier League, maybe consider hitting that red subscribe button, and let me know, how do you feel about the year 2018? You feel it was a good year for the Canadian Premier League? Is there something you're a bit disappointed that they didn't do? Maybe that they're missing. Maybe it is the TV deal, if the TV deal hasn't been announced yet when I drop this episode. So until next week, thank you for watching.